Hi, my name is Kristen. I'm gonna present this in the most creative way I could possibly think of. Um, I'm gonna answer a few questions while filming myself answer them just because I feel like that's how I get my point across the best. And also, I'm thinking this is in a creative way just because it's not what I'm used to at all, and it's stepping out of my comfort zone, which I feel is what creativity is all about. So I'm gonna start responding to the questions. The first thing I want to explain is that throughout my whole academic experience, the past assignments that I most enjoyed creating were written assignments, just because I'm not someone who enjoys filming myself or stepping out of my comfort zone. It's just not something I like doing. I have a hard time trying to new things that could possibly better my creativity and enhance my experiences simply because I'm just really shy too, even if it doesn't seem like it. Additionally, I also was never really asked to present an assignment in a creative manner from what I remember, so I was never really forced to step out of my comfort zone either. Maybe that's why I never did or thought of ways that I could. When I thought of what my individual strengths were, I remember times that I gave an oral presentation. So I remember being able to really, like, when I was giving the oral presentations, I remember being able to really present my points well when presenting orally. What I mean by this is, like, I remember thinking to myself many times that I feel like my points can be received in a much easier and stronger fashion now that I was explaining them with my words instead of in an academic and written manner. So I feel like I was able to explain them better, and I'm someone that like uses my hands a lot, and I feel like people get more like interested and intrigued by what I'm trying to say, and they feel like how strongly I'm trying to like point things out. Also, every time I gave up like a presentation, oral presentation, I can also see the people who are listening. I could see them understanding me more than usual and like nodding their heads to what I was saying. However, when I write a paper and I reread it to myself sometimes I'm even confused myself, even if I understand what I'm trying to get across perfectly. So I think of people that are reading it who might be confused. I try to change it in the best way possible, but I always come back to thinking like orally, I get my point across better, which is why I'm doing this in a video. Sometimes words and explanations are just better understood when explained in a less academic fashion and with someone's own raw words instead of academic words, which can sometimes confuse people, like however, or like moreover, furthermore, all these things. Like it just adds more pressure to when you're just trying to get a point across, which is why I really chose this. And this is as creative as I could get because I'm not very like artistic where I could make blogs and stuff like that. So I chose this way. I hope it works. Also, with this information, I thought about what kind of learner I am as well, and I connected the 2 points I now noticed, which is I'm a very visual learner. I know that for me personally, I'm able to learn a lot better when listening to someone talk out loud in their own words or watching someone talk through a video than when actually reading an article or reading what someone else is writing as an explanation. This kind of goes hand in hand with what my strengths are also, so I thought of presenting this assignment through videos of myself talking. This is also definitely a very creative assignment for me because I'm very much stepping out of my comfort zone, as you can probably see, and it's something I've never done before. What I think creativity really stands for is being different than what you're used to and not being afraid to put yourself out there in a vulnerable manner, which is something this video assignment will definitely allow me to do. It is very different than anything I've ever done before, and I'm showing my complete vulnerable self as I'm not just recording a voiceover, but I'm actually filming myself present this assignment to you. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to answer the questions that this assignment asks of me, and yeah. So the first question is, describe why creativity is important for intervening in human systems or not. So what I believe is that creativity is very important, if not the most important factor when it comes to intervening in human systems, because really this is when those within the human system, so let's say your creativity is important for the people in the human system to be creative. I know that might sound confusing, but let me continue. So This is when those within the human system are confronted with the need to change. So it's hard to notice from the get-go. It's hard once you're in the human system. It's really hard to notice that there is a need for change. And once you establish that there's a need, that there's a change that is needed in the system, it does not come to mind right away on what exactly needs to be changed and to what extent. Usually the first thing somebody in the human system notices is that there is a change that is needed. That's the first step, and that's not easy to get to. And then after, it's to actually go deep enough and think what that change is, which is even more difficult. And it takes a lot of creativity, because even so, once they do learn what exactly needs to be changed, they must then learn how to go about that change. So how to get to the next side, to the other side of things, to make a change. And in order to do all this, it takes a lot of creativity, because to come up with a positive change and a good way to implement it, it's not easy to come up with a change first, and then second, to make sure that this is going to be a good change and in a way that could be implemented in the best way possible. So demonstrating creativity's importance, this really demonstrates creativity's importance when intervening in a human system. So to begin with explaining, one of the main ways to get humans to explore and expand on their creativity is to really throw them in the playing field and pay close attention to every single detail. So similar to what was mentioned in the book Creativity, Theories, and Themes, Runko in 2014 talks about how people from such a young age are typically evaluated on how well they do in school within a classroom. However, he believes that the real way to get people to really learn is to put them in their natural environments, as that's where they're going to spend the rest of their lives and most of their life, and it won't actually just be in a classroom. So to get them to really learn, to really expand their knowledge, they should actually be in the environment that they'll spend the most of their lives in, you know? So that was on page 5 in that textbook. What I took from this in relation to the question at hand is that people need to place themselves within the human system in order to properly intervene, and only then will their true creativity and knowledge be able to work to its full potential. A proper intervention will not occur when people are just watching the human system from afar, but rather they actually must enter the system, put their feet in someone else's shoes in that system to see how it functions and what changes are needed and how these changes will come across in the best way possible. This is one of the main reasons why creativity is important, because it is not always easy to realize what needs to be changed and how to change it. In my opinion, only people who are creative and have an open enough mind to new possibilities and new perspectives are those who would be able to notice it and actually go through with the change. And why I'm saying this is because me personally, like I mentioned, I'm not a creative person in the sense where I won't be somebody who will notice that there's a change needed right away, just because I'm not a creative person, so I'm not used to change. But on the other hand, I do have a really open mind to other people's perspectives. So let's say a creative person brought to me an idea that change is needed. I will sit there and listen to them, and I want to know what do they think, and then I'll go and evaluate myself. Like, do I think that this change will bring a better positive to the human system? And I'll think of ways I could better myself. But it's hard for me to notice it from the get-go, and I think that has a lot to do with creativity. So that's why I think creativity is really important with noticing with the human systems. Also, only those who can really look at the human system as an outsider and from the perspective of being within the human system, so from somebody who could do both, are really the ones who'd be able to have the most creative minds on how the perfect change should take place, with basically what specific amount of change and what this change will provide to the system. Why I'm saying this is because I always feel like people that can place themselves on both sides could really see what change is needed and why, because like I said before, me in the human system, for example, if somebody told me that there was a change, it's hard for me to notice. And these people are someone from an outsider and someone from the inside, maybe stepping in and noticing this change and sharing with me why they think that's the change. And I feel like those are the really most creative people, and those are the most efficient people at putting a change on a human system. According to Wesley, in the social innovation dynamic, our human species is really defined by our ability to explore new possibilities and to change. This was on page 1. So this demonstrates everything I'm really trying to explain, whereas humans are fabricated to be creative and to change wherever is necessary. So whether it takes them long to figure it out or whether it takes them just 2 seconds, after that, the people implementing this change must have a creative enough mind to be able to reevaluate the circumstance and notice whether or not they intervened well enough and implemented enough change or the right change in order to improve the human system in discussion. So like even after all this change is noticed, implemented, in what amounts, all these things, it then takes a creative mind to actually reevaluate and notice if this change is actually good or if it needs to be changed more a bit or maybe even taken back a few steps. So it really does take a lot of creativity for all these things. So for the next question, it says to talk about the role of individuals, groups, and systems in creativity and social innovation. So what I respond to this is that all 3 of these being individuals, groups, and systems, they all hold very important roles in regards to creativity and social innovations. And to begin with this is, the role, to begin, I'll talk about individuals. So the role of each individual for the best creativity and social innovation is to actually hold a good amount of interest in the topic at hand themselves. So I got this from Runkel 2014 when he said that when he explained pretty much in the textbook that the utmost accuracy comes from those individuals who are both interested in the topic and interested in doing well in the natural environment that the topic at hand is in. So reason being for this is because when there is genuine care and interest in what is being observed and thought about, that is when the most effort is being put into coming up with the best response and and that's when true creativity comes together. So this was taken from page 5. Continuing from this and linking it to why groups are important with creativity and social innovation is because individuals working in groups, they help teach and show more to these groups of individuals, more than they would ever be able to learn on their own. So when individuals, obviously they can think of a lot of things on their own, but in there's a lot of the times when an individual can think of something to a certain extent, but the working in groups allows them to really see things in a way that they might not have seen themselves. So further, to go move on from this, in the same book, it illustrates that there are 2 types of imagination that comes from within one's creativity. So this is what I was trying to explain. These are known as reproductive imagination and creative imagination. So in the book, it explains that reproductive imagination is when the individual fabricates their own mental image from a description they got from another individual in the group, whereas creative imagination is about the own individual's very own creativity and exploration of their own minds. So this is what it kind of goes with what I was saying earlier, is that an individual, obviously they have, let's say somebody explains something, everybody's going to take that in their own way. Obviously there's some of the obvious, and there's also, when it comes to being creative, everybody is creative in their own different ways. So it's hard to let's say once you see something in a creative way, in your own way, it's hard to see more. So like once let's say a group member tells you the way they saw in their creative way, it kind of allows you to really expand, and I feel like that's why groups and individuals are very important, or hold very important roles with creativity and social innovation, because it allows you to just have so many more endless possibilities, endless ideas, and it also allows you to combine all of those because you're just not one person seeing it in one creative way. You're more than one, you're more than 2, you're maybe even more than 3, seeing it in all your creative ways and combining it. So it is also what one can picture on their own, from their own creativities, as well as how they can describe it to someone else in the most accurate way possible for the rest of the group to view it that way. So, I mean, let's say an individual sees something a certain way, well, they're trying to explain it the most they can to the group member, how they can see that creative way. And also I find that within the roles of groups, individuals, It really, that shows a lot of creativity. Being able to see something in a creative way and being able to explain it to somebody else, I find that's very creative in itself, because like I said, I really think creativity is about like stepping out of your comfort zone, exploring new things, things that you're not used to, because creativity, I mean, it's all about being creative. It's about being different, different than what you're used to. Like for me, example, if I were to just write this all down, well, that's not me being creative, because I always do that. I always try to get my point across. I always try to reference to other readings and tell my teachers when I'm trying to get a point to get across just by referencing, But this is really me referencing, putting it in my own words, my own explanations, my own experiences. So that's what I think. That's why I think individuals, groups, and creativity, social innovation, I think that those roles are really important with those two things. So what this really shows me is that individuals are really able to expand their visions and creativity with the help of group members, and even more so, individuals who are able to put themselves out in the real world. They're able to view the real deal for themselves in person, who can then build their creativity even further. So like they not only are they listening to their group members, but they're allowing themselves to see it for themselves, and actually maybe even see it in the way their group members see it. And that's creativity in itself. Moreover, working together in groups is one of the most important roles when it comes to creativity and social innovation, because of the fact that we as humans are social species, and as well as we as humans are very reliant on others for the creation, and I quote, sorry, for the creation and maintenance of the world in which we live. This came from Wesley, page 1. So what I took from this is that people are very dependent on learning from others, building off others, seeing things in the way others explain when it comes to visions on our world and how we can prove it for the better, similar to what social innovation talks about. So basically there would be no positive social innovation if it was not for groups, and with groups comes great amounts of creativity from numerous different minds. Like social innovation would almost never be possible from just one person's opinion. It's about a social thing. It's very basically saying like it's basically all about groups, because like Wesley had explained in what I shared earlier, like we humans are social species. That's how we learn, that's how we explain, that's how we expand, and that's how we be creative. In social innovation, it's all about that, and it's cool. It's amazing, honestly. As for all three roles linked together now, so the individual, the groups, and the systems, the roles are most important when put to work all together. So the individual must first be able to adapt to the way the group sees things. The group must be able to all agree on how they see things in similar ways and come up with a final idea. That's very important. And when it comes to the actual system, the system must also be able to adapt very quickly. In the book How the World Changed, Wesley, Zimmerman, and Patton, 2007, they explain that each individual in the group must be able to alter and change their thinking on the system, and must be able to move from seeing things as just simple to more complicated in order to work better and have a better outcome. So what I took from this, in order to most effectively fix a system, either by yourself or in a group, it takes a really strong eye and a strong mind. A strong eye to notice all that needs to be changed, and a strong mind in order to make sure that change is implemented for the better of the system. So like it's very important to for the groups to be able to, they notice something, but it's also important for them to be able to notice more than what they noticed. I don't know if this makes sense. It makes sense to me. How can I explain this differently? So like I said kind of earlier, you can't just think that, first of all, if you think there's no change needed, you have to be able to adapt to the fact that other people might not agree with you. That's what groups are about. That's what individuals and groups are all about. It's to improve and make it the strongest it could be. Being in groups, what I've learned by being in groups is that it's just to, first of all, it's to learn from each other. It's to work together and coming together with a final response, because you're all working on the same question. You all have different minds, different ideas, and the fact that you can put it all together and make a strong answer is what it's all about. So to touch on the four bullet points that we had to touch on for this assignment, I first chose to talk about the definition of creativity and of social innovation. So I actually found two very strong definitions that I feel really explain them perfectly. And basically, I'm going to put them on the screen and I'm going to read them out loud just because sometimes that can come across better than just reading, like I'm trying to explain in this video of creativity, showing my creativity. So, but I'm not going to explain it in my own words because it's really well explained already by the people who wrote it. And I feel like I like from someone who understands it already, I feel like this definition goes perfectly with both social innovation and creativity. So first, I will put social innovation's definition. So, social innovation is the process of developing and deploying effective solutions to challenging and often systemic social environments, social and environmental issues in support of social progress. Social innovation is not the prerogative or privilege of any organizational form or legal structure. Solutions often require the active collaboration of constituents across government, business, and the nonprofit world. So that's a quote from Sarah A. Soul, Neil Malhotra, and Bernadette Clavier. Finally, the definition of creativity. So this word, creativity, this word is basically all about different definitions. There's so many people can see this word in so many different ways, and I found an article. I shared the link. It's an education blog, I guess, and I saw many different definitions. If you click on it, the ones I'm sharing are not the only ones there is. The ones I chose, however, are the ones that I feel I feel creativity is the most about. So I'll read them out loud again as I share them here on the screen. Creativity is defined as the tendency to generate or recognize ideas, alternatives, or possibilities that may be useful in solving problems, communicating with others, and entertaining ourselves and others. Another one is, in order to be creative, you need to be able to view things in new ways or from a different perspective. Among other things, you need to be able to generate new possibilities, new alternatives. Tests of creativity measure not only the number of alternatives that people can generate, but the uniqueness of those alternatives. The ability to generate alternatives or to see things uniquely does not occur by change. It is linked to other more fundamental qualities of thinking, such as flexibility, tolerance of ambiguity or unpredictability, and the enjoyment of things heretofore unknown. And then the last one, creativity is any act, idea, or product that changes an existing domain or that transforms an existing domain into a new one. What counts is whether the novelty he or she produces is accepted for inclusion in the domain. So I chose these definitions just because I'm trying to show how I feel creativity is to the world. And what I took from these definitions, how I resonate with them, is because it's funny, like the fact that it's pretty much describing what I'm doing right now and what this assignment means for me. So that's why I shared these also, but also just because that's how I feel creativity is all about. So the second bullet point is your thoughts on how your own individual creativity and that of your colleagues played a role or didn't during your group projects. So I'm going to start off by first saying they definitely did play a role during our group projects. My group really worked well together. However, okay, so we're going to start off by explaining that one thing about me, obviously, as I mentioned numerous times, is that I have a lot of trouble with being creative. I know that it might show, like, it might not show now because I seem like maybe I'm explaining this properly and these videos are actually good. That's because I told myself to just pretend like I'm talking to a friend, or not so much a camera, because I won't be good with that. So as I mentioned, what I'm thinking of now is the nature sculpting assignment and the dream journal assignment, because maybe it doesn't show that I'm not a creative person now, but with those assignments, um, it was hard for me to think of a sculpture, or I explained it in those assignments. But the dream journal also, I feel like I was sticking to like just one topic. I was having a lot of trouble with like making something up, or being creative in what I was trying to talk about. I'm very someone who, anyway, I don't want to go too deep about this, but I'm someone who really is like a realist. I have a trouble like being like with sci-fi and things, so it's creativity is just hard for me, but it's something I want to work on. So, however, since I was working within a group of a total of 5 people for the length of the semester, this helped me a lot during my group projects, even though I'm not creative. Although I'm not creative, one of my positive traits is that once there is an idea, or a creative idea, or several creative ideas put on the table, I'm someone who's able to really build off of them, whether I saw them myself or not. Like, you mention them, you explain them properly. I'm someone who can build off those ideas, come up with many more ideas to add to those ideas and make them more interesting, make them more fun. Not only this, but these ideas end up being ones we work with for our projects, and they are also built off even more by other group members. So, with, like, let's say someone who is creative share that first initial idea, just because like some of us weren't able to, and I'm able to really build off that. In that sense, I'm very good with that stuff. When we did the systems map, I was able to think of so many things that come in relation to our main topic, which was the housing market, by the way. This is someone, and then other group members were like even added more. So that within that sense, our group was very, very strong. Like, because our creativity was strong being when put together in the role of playing in the role of during our group projects. This is actually something that always worked well when I was working in groups, as there are always some people who can be creative without having to build off anything, which is a group member that every group needs in order to succeed the best way possible. Like, we all need that first person that's going to be creative and think of that first idea. Even so, though, there are also group members like the way that I am that are needed in a group as well, because those are the ones who can create, add on, and expand to other people's ideas, which will only improve the end result of the group projects with numerous ideas, numerous build-offs, and all these things. As some examples for this specific Ahsc 403 class, when our group had to come up with a system to work on and base our projects off, we had actually quite a lot of trouble from the beginning. Like, we couldn't think of an idea. A lot of us were saying ideas. Some of us didn't like them, or some of us couldn't think of anything that we could add to that. So it was hard. There were group members that were giving ideas that were either too broad, and some that gave ideas that were too specific. Even though this made us take longer to come up with the perfect topic, it seemed to provide our group with the perfect balance, and that if we followed the direction and met in the middle, we would be able to come up with the perfect, well-balanced topic. So in the middle of too broad or too specific. We knew our mistakes now, that we were either this or that. So now that we knew, as a team, we had to meet in the middle and find the one that was perfectly not too broad or too specific in order to build off of it. Because if it was too specific, then we couldn't build off of that, like with more systems. And if it was too broad, then it would just be so many systems within the system. So it would just be a mess. Finally, after a lot of discussion and brainstorming, we found a topic that we all loved. And once we did, the ideas just came pouring out from everyone. And it ended up being a real positive group atmosphere for all the assignments after that we did together, because we all felt really good about this topic that we chose. We all liked it. We all understood it and were able to really add on to it. And I feel like that like the creativity of our group was really, really good for the group projects in this class, just because there was just a good balance. There was some creative people. There was some people that were able to think outside the box, think inside the box, and there was just a really good balance. And I feel like our group really had a good balance of creativity that reflected throughout our group work and assignments, like that, which was really cool. I really enjoyed working in this group. So the next and third bullet point is your thoughts on how you can become more creative. This, I had to choose this one because I said it numerous times, as I knew I would, because I'm obviously not, like, I don't feel like I'm creative, so I obviously can think of many ways I can become more creative due to me not being all that creative to begin with. So some things I always knew about myself is that I'm a little too closed-minded. So I know that before I said that I'm able to see things after someone else explains them, but that's because like I know that I'm too closed-minded. So even though I'm able to see those things, those see what other people are trying to tell me, it's then hard for me to believe it myself. Although I will try to really hard. So that this is something I always I noticed really early when during school, and I believe that if I worked on it, I'd become more creative as a result. So I'm working on it currently, and I'm going to continue working on it. And this is not only for creativity, but for everything, because I mean, it's not good to be closed-minded. It stops me from a lot of things. So what I mean by closed-minded exactly is that once I have my mind made up on something, I guess some people call this stubborn, is that it is really hard for me to see it in a different way. I notice this at times in group work and when focusing on systems, whereas if I thought it should be a certain way, but my group member thought it to be another way, I would try to see it their way, but in order to, I would need a deep explanation from my group member to persuade me to see things differently, which I will say that it has happened. So like, even though I'm not just gonna, if I already feel strongly about something, I won't just change my mind and see it the way the other person sees it just because they said they see it differently. But if they give like a good enough deep explanation and they persuade me enough to see that it their way too, I'm not gonna say that I abandon completely my initial idea, but I will see it their way also. So yes, I am a little bit stubborn in changing the way I see things, but it won't, because it won't change the way I see things. But now I'm also able to see it both ways. So I won't give up my way, but I will know that it's not the only way, which I have to say is good, but still something I could work on. So this is something that may actually have negatively affected me while working on systems thinking, because I was not always able to see many different issues and probably just the ones I first noticed myself. So like I was able to notice a few issues within the housing market myself, but I wasn't able to see all the ones that my group members mentioned. And once they did mention a few, I wanted to check, like, oh, okay, how, like, I wanted to know more about it. But I will say that I did learn a lot from other people, so I'm happy about that. Additionally to this, another way I can become more creative is by really stepping out of my comfort zone. So I already know that I'm not the most comfortable with placing myself in a system I'm not used to and implementing change. So such as the housing market, I'm not I have to say, like, I just started getting into that because I am looking for something myself. But initially, it's kind of weird timing because it was during this that I started looking for something in the housing market myself, which is really crazy. Um, but before that, I've never really known much about the housing market or anything like that. So the way I'm seeing it now is what I know that it's not really supposed to be like that. So then again, so I feel like I might be stepping on people's toes, and because basically if I don't know a lot about it, I don't want to say stuff about it because I don't want to cause, like, I'm afraid to say the wrong thing, which is something I definitely have to work on. If I did work on this, I'd be able to put myself in new situations more often and learn more from all the different opportunities. Like, I wouldn't, I would say, if I was, ways I could be more creative would allow me to actually learn more. So, like, now, because I'm not creative person, I don't share my ideas because I'm scared that they're wrong, and even if they are wrong, well, then I don't learn from them. So I'll never know if they actually are wrong, and if they are wrong, nobody's could help me see it, know that they're wrong, because I don't say them. So that's a way that I could definitely be more creative. Learning more and allowing myself to be more open-minded will definitely allow me to expand my creativity and see things in a different light. And another way I can become more creative is by not being afraid to get the wrong answer. So a lot of times I'm working on something new, I try to just stick to the simplest answer, like I was saying before, and the response that would just make most sense to everyone else. And even though I think that my answer could have been better and explained it better, I don't go too crazy. I just explain it, and that's it, because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to confuse people, or I don't want to like be wrong. So I just share like the simplest thing, and that's it. Or I just don't share anything. This definitely does close me off to being less creative, because I'm afraid to take risks and share my deeper inner knowledge that I'm afraid others will either not agree with, or understand in the same way that I do. So like sometimes I think something so deeply that like I can't even explain it. Like it's hard to explain, and so I just don't. But it if I did, it would definitely show my creativity a lot more. But I hide it from people. I only share it with people really close to me. Similar to this, when I think about a few assignments I did this semester for this class, I was not able to think of creative ideas or stories as easy as I thought I would. I thought that because I was writing them down and I was just sending them in, that I wouldn't be as like intimidated by the whole thing. But I really was, and this is actually when I learned most about how uncreative I was, as I stuck to similar topics when I wrote about anything, and I was able to just write about anything, and I always stuck to similar topics, which I noticed. And most of them had to do with my actual real life. Like I said, I'd never made up a story. I never changed my real life stories. It was crazy. Like I noticed myself really sticking to a pattern, and that's when I noticed that I'm not creative at all. Even when I'm given this opportunity to completely be creative, I had a hard time. And it's even now, like I keep saying, like this video is me being creative, in my opinion. It's funny because me on paper is something I'm so used to. So I thought that I would be able to be more creative than usual, but I really wasn't. So I guess it's just something I really need to work on. And I think I can work on this by maybe trying on my own without actually writing an assignment, trying on my own to write in a more creative way, and just stepping out of my comfort zone, even with my writing, even with my explanations or everything. I tried so many times during these assignments to think about something I can make up and write about, but I was just not able. So I know that it's definitely something I can work on. I also found myself seeming repetitive with my poems and my thoughts that I shared. Even when it came to my nature sculpture assignment, I thought of something to do that makes me feel something. Once again, I found difficulty stepping out of my comfort zone and attempting to make something up completely from scratch that I was not sure how it made me feel. So I stuck to something that I knew, like for example, the kayak. I knew that that's something I felt something with. I couldn't choose something that I didn't know would allow me to write about, or see in a way that I can make it more creative or share with my with the group. I just wasn't able. So I just stuck with something that I was certain of, which I can also work on as being more creative. Choosing something next time maybe that I'm not sure how it makes me feel, because this will show me maybe a different way of me feeling, a different way of something that I'm not sure. I just stuck with simplicity and stuck with similar stories that I knew how to explain, and I knew how to express how they made me feel, which is what I often do in most assignments. And this is how I really think I should work on my creativity a lot. So the fourth and final bullet point that I'll be speaking about is your thoughts on how systems thinking did or didn't help you in designing your group interventions. So to answer this question, I wanted to just share beforehand the two definitions I found on group first systems thinking and group intervention. So I will just share them here. So to answer this question, to share my thoughts on this question is, in my opinion, I believe that systems thinking both helped in designing a group intervention and also did not help in designing a group intervention. Even though it sounds confusing, it really depends on how you look at it. So I'll try explaining this in the best way I possibly could. Like I said, sometimes I have really deep thoughts and opinions that it's really hard for me to share, but I will try. That's the point of this creative assignment. So, why I believe this is because, first of all, when you're analyzing a specific system using system thinking, if you analyze it in a way that you believe it should look, then it really closes your mind off to what other ways it could possibly look like. So, like the housing market, for example, we're all used to what it should look like, but that's not the way it looks now. And we have to be open to thinking why that is and being able to analyze it in the way it looks now and not the way we're all used to the way it looks. This is the best example I can actually think of, which is funny because that's actually what our assignment is about. So that's why. So it may sound confusing, but in other words, what I'm trying to say is that basically every single person will believe systems need different group interventions when using systems thinking. That's the whole point. So sticking to systems thinking really could restrict our group from thinking outside the box. It could have done that. So because we were thinking so much about how the system and other systems and most systems should look like and act like instead of thinking outside the box using originality. This is what brings in the actual thought of creativity, which is what this whole assignment is based on, which our group did not have much of in the beginning. So why I know this is because, like I mentioned earlier, it took us a long time to choose a system, and even once we did, it took us a while to build our map and analyze issues using systems thinking. Yes, we were able to put in a lot of different ideas once we did find the main system, but we had a hard time thinking of different ways. So like, yes, this is how it looks like now, but this is not how it always looks like, or how it used to look like is not what it looks like now. So we wanted to do it in that way, which we had difficulty doing, but we got the hang of it. Going hand in hand with this. As a result, it took us longer than usual to come up with a group intervention, but once we did, I believe we designed it very strongly. Like I said, we were able to analyze how it used to look and how that differs to what it looks like now, and that's how we made the group intervention. We made the issue, we found it that way, and that's what really helped us. We were able to come up with so many ideas on how the housing market system is negatively and positively affected, and with this, we were able to decide on the best group intervention for the assignment at hand. So basically, fast to explain, I mean, you guys saw our assignment, but what was cool about this is that we were able to use systems thinking and put our shoes in the systems thinking with the help of this, because we wanted to see what the system usually looks like and share the system and how it looks like now, and correlate the two and find the issue. So basically, the housing market being so crazy right now. Right now it's going down, but before, how there was just way too many buyers compared to sellers, and it just was too crazy. And I'm gonna continue, but basically that. On the other hand, though, so it may have not helped us because it was hard for us to see it in a different way, but we did. But once we were able to, we did, but that's why it was initially hard. On the other hand, systems thinking may have also helped our designing group intervention because, for example, the housing market, like I mentioned earlier, we are so used to what it usually looks like. What it usually looks like is that someone wants to sell their house and they do not you instantly get 30 visits, 15 offers on this house within the first week or the first few days. I've heard of people happening to people. However, now, due to COVID-19, you hear this so often, 30, 40 visits and 15 offers in 2 days. It seems very different than what everyone's used to. With using systems thinking, we identified this as the biggest issue because which also then leads the houses selling for way more than their actual market value is, which is not fair for the buyers. We were able to design a group intervention for how the housing market should be adjusted easily because we know how different and wrong the system appears now just because of a single factor, which is the pandemic. Therefore, systems thinking did not help us with designing group interventions because it may have minimized our creativity and closed off our minds to what we are used to seeing within a system, and it stopped us from seeing outside the box. Whereas systems thinking is all about systems, this is a quote, systems constituent parts interrelate and how systems work over time, as quoted earlier. So from the quote I showed earlier, this is what it took. So this is normal. It's normal that we were not able to think outside the box because systems thinking is the way systems usually work and how they have been working over time. So that's why our group initially, it didn't help us thinking with systems thinking because we're used to looking how it's always supposed to be looking. But with this specific topic that we chose, we had to think a bit outside the box and how now it looks different than what it usually looks like. And as can be understood, this definition explains that systems is used to recognize constituent attitudes and characteristics, and instead of how the system can change for the better, it focuses on how the system always used to be and how it can go back to the way it always was. But that's how we attacked it. So on the other hand, systems thinking did help us with designing group interventions because it allowed us to notice a pattern while also recognizing what changed this pattern. So when designing the group intervention to help this change of patterns, we were able to use one of the many issues that came up when creating systems thinking analyzation and build off of that. This helped us because we were working on a problem that we knew was the cause of all this, which is when we came up with the house value cap, which is a house not being able to sell for a ridiculous amount of money more than it is actually worth, which is what we came up with for our group intervention. So there it is, my 4 bullet points, and a few points before the 4 bullet points that I mentioned, that I explained. So that's it. That's me ending this video. I actually really enjoyed doing this video. I think it definitely is me me showing my creativity in the best way I possibly could, and I actually noticed that it feels more natural. Like, I know I kind of mentioned this earlier, but when I'm writing to my teachers and my TAs, my professors, what I'm trying to prove, sorry about that, I'm trying to prove something, right? So it's always so robotic. Obviously, that's what it's supposed to be like. Like, it's not robotic, but it's supposed to sound professional and academic in the best way possible. That's the whole point of it. But in this way, I feel like I was able to show the academic of this class and also show how, like, each person is different, and that's cool. Obviously, that's what this assignment, I'm assuming, is all about. Just seeing, like, obviously answer these academic questions to show you understood the class, but also show me, like, how you're different than other people and how you're creative, and show why this class is, like, what this class taught you. And I think this class did not only teach me academic things, but it taught me stuff about myself. It taught me stuff about systems, obviously, how that you can't be closed-minded. You have to be able to see things in so many different ways in order to properly intervene and be able to effectively intervene and be able to get that point across to other people. You have to be creative. You have to have social innovation. You have to be able to work in groups. You have to be able to work alone. You have to be able to notice how you could be more creative, which is what I did. And I noticed that just by doing assignments that weren't even, well, you could kind of tell that nature sculpture and the dream journal is about creativity, but it wasn't there written to you that this is about creativity, show your creativity. No, it said, do this, do this, do this, do this, and it taught me how to work on my creativity. So that's why when I was thinking about how I could present this assignment, I was like, I'm just gonna choose something that I've never done. And I've never explained an assignment with my face, like explaining it right there in front of you. And I find it cool because it's different than doing a voiceover, like I said earlier. And I feel like you can see how not only can you hear me, but you can see how I feel about certain things and how excited or worried I was about something or some stuff like that. So I really enjoyed it, and I don't think it will be the last time I do a video to explain myself, because like I said, I think some explanations I have, me as a person personally, I'm sure for a lot of people it's the same. We feel something so strongly, and it's so hard to explain it in a way that someone else could understand, and it's even harder on paper, and it's even harder. Um, it's easier, obviously, in a video. So I liked doing this assignment, and although I was nervous and still am, like I don't know. It's not something I'm used to, but it definitely could be. And I'm happy I stepped out of my comfort zone, which I think is what creativity is all about. And it's about being okay with being different and being willing to notice to notice how you can be different, and notice what your strengths in creativity are about. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for this class. I really enjoyed it.